Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare. Jaya Jagannatha, Jaya Jagannatha, Baladeva, Jaya Sudarshana. Jaya Jagannatha Swami, Nayana Patagami, Nayana Patagami, Bhavatu me. Jaya Radha Krishna Chandra, Radha Krishna Chandra, Radhe. Jaya Gauranita, 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 Jaya Gauranita. जय लक्ष्मी नरसिंह जय अनंत देव प्रहलाद नरसिंह जय अनंत देव जय जय प्रभुपाद 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 जय जय प्रभुपाद जय 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 गुरुदेव 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 जय जय गुरुदेव जय ओम विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्रजकाचार्य अष्टोत्तर सदस्य श्रीमद अभय चरणारविंद भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय जय ओम विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्रजकाचार्य अष्टोत्तर सदस्य श्रीमद भक्ति सिद्धांत सरस्वती गोस्वामी महाराज श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय नामाचार्य श्री हरिदास ठाकुर की जय प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौरभक्त वृंद की जय श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंड राधा कुंड गिरिगोवर्धन की जय ब्रजभूमि श्री वृंदावन धाम की जय मायापुर श्री नवद्वीप धाम की जय मथुरा धाम की जय द्वारका धाम की जय जगन्नाथपुरी धाम की जय गंगा माई की जय यमुना माई की जय भक्ति देवी की जय तुलसी महारानी की जय समवेत गौर भक्त वृंद की जय गौरभक्त प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि बोल all glories to the assembled devotees Hare Krishna all glories to the assembled devotees Hare Krishna all glories to the assembled devotees Hare Krishna all glories to Shri Guru and Shri Shri Gauranga Jai Srila Prabhupada Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Devapaka Swami Namaacharya Hare Krishna devotees, welcome for today's Srimad Bhagavatam class of ISKCON Seshadri Guru. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Narayanam Namaskritya
Narayanam Namaskritya
Naram Chaiva Narottamam
Naram Chaiva Narottamam
Devim Saraswatim Vyasam
Devim Saraswatim Vyasam
Tato Jayamudiraye
Tato Jayamudiraye
Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu
Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu
Nityam Bhagavatas Sevaya
Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya
Bhagavati Uttama Shloke
Bhagavati Uttama Shloke
Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki
Bhakti Naishtiki.
Om Tat Sat. So today we will be discussing Srimad Bhagavatam, 3rd canto, 19th chapter, verse number 2 to 5. The 19th chapter, the 3rd canto is entitled Status Quo, and the 19th chapter is entitled The Killing of the Demon Hiranyaksha. So we will be reading verse number 2. Tatah sapatnam mukatach charantam akuto bhayam jahanotpatya kadaya hanav asuram akshajaha. Tatah sapatnam mukatach charantam akuto bhayam jahanotpatya gadaya hanav asuram akshajaha. Tatah sapatnam mukatach charantam akuto bhayam Jaganotpatya Gadaya Hanav Ashuram Akshajaha. Word by word meaning. Tataha, then. Sapatnam, enemy. Mukatach, in front of him. Charantam, stalking. Akuto Bayam, fearlessly. Jagana, struck. Utpatya, after springing up. Gadaya, with his mace. Hanav, at the chin. Asuram, the demon. Akshajaha, the Lord who was born from the nostril of Brahma. Translation. The Lord who had appeared from the nostril of Brahma sprang and aimed his mace at the chin of his enemy, the Hiranyaksha demon, who was stalking fearlessly before him. Verse number 3. Sa hata tena gadaya vihata bhagavat karat vigurnita patad reje tad adbhutam ivam bhavat. Word by word meaning. Sa, that mace, hata, stuck, tena, by Hiranyaksha, gadaya, with his mace, vihata, slipped, bhagavat, of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, karat, from the hand, vigurnita, whirling, apatat, fell down, reje, was shining, tat, that, adbhutam, miraculous, iva, indeed, adbhuta, was. Translation. Struck by the demon's mace, however, the Lord's mace slipped from his hand and looked splendid as it fell down whirling. This was miraculous, for the mace was blazing wonderfully. Verse number 4. Sa tata labda tirto api na babade nirayudham manayansa mride dharmam visvakshenam prakopayan. Word by word meaning. Sa, that Hiranyaksha, tada, then, labda tirtaha, having gained an excellent opportunity, api, although, na, not, babade, attacked, nirayudam, having no weapon, manayan, respecting, sa, Hiranyaksha, mride, in battle, dharmam, the code of combat, visvakshenam, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, prakopayam, making angry. Even though the demon had an excellent opportunity to strike his unarmed foe without obstruction, he respected the law of single combat, thereby kindling the fury of the Supreme Lord. Verse number 5. Gadayam api viddhayam hahakare vinirghate manayam asa tadharmam sanabam chasmarat vibhuhu. Word by word meaning. Gadayam, at his mace, apaviddhayam, fell, hahakare, a cry of alarm, vinirghate, arose, manayam asa, acknowledged, tat, of Hiranyaksha, dharmam, righteousness, sunabam, the Sudarshana Chakra, cha, and asmarat, remembered, vibhuhu, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Translation. As the Lord's mace fell to the ground and a cry of alarm rose from the witnessing crowd of gods and rishis, the Personality of Godhead acknowledged the demon's love of righteousness and therefore invoked his Sudarshana discus. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurvudmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadanti Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dheena Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhayevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Iti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Hari Om Tat Sat. So here we have discussed, we are to discuss these 4 verses. But if you actually saw, Prabhupada has not given any purport for these 4 verses. So I don't think I can speak much on these 4 verses. Generally, the etiquette is if Prabhupada has given a purport, then we try to elaborate on that. Since Prabhupada has not given much, or rather has not written any purport, I don't think I'm in a position to actually, comment on this. But a few very high-level pointers we can discuss for today on these 4 verses. So the first verse is a statement of fact that the Lord who had appeared from the nostril of Brahma sprang and aimed his mace at the chin of his enemy, the Hiranyaksha demon who was stalking fearlessly before him. So this background is, this discussion is happening between Maitreya Muni and Vidura, Mahatma Vidura. And the discussion is happening about how the doorkeepers of the Lord in Vaikuntha, Jai Vijay, how they were cursed by the 4 Kumaras, and as a result of which how they came down into this material world because of the curse, or in other words, as devotees we don't look at it that way, as the wish of the Lord, because the Lord wanted to have a wonderful combat, and therefore who is more qualified to give pleasure to the Lord in combat than his pure devotees, not the demons, right? The Lord would always want to associate more with his devotees in all his pleasure potencies, and therefore the most fittest persons to engage with the Lord, of course nobody is equal to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but it is more of his desire that he wanted to experience a little bit of a fighting, flexing his muscles with his own pure devotees. Therefore, these 2 wonderful devotees came down as Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu. And here is the actual fighting which is being described here. The actual fight which happens, so the Lord comes down from the nostrils of Brahma in the form of a boar, Varahadev. So he comes down, and then there is this fight which is happening, and this is the description of the fight which is there. So this is the first verse, and the second verse goes like this. It says, struck by the demon's mace, however, the Lord's mace slipped from his hand and looked splendid as it fell down whirling. This was miraculous, for the mace was blazing wonderfully. So now if you see, in the previous verse there was this discussion previous verses actually, where Lord Brahma, he makes us nice prayers to the Lord, and he's praying to the Lord, oh Lord, uh, don't play with this man, you just kill him off. So here is a request by Brahmaji. So basically from that we can actually understand that, the Lord, in this verse, if there is a kind of the mace is falling off the Lord's hand, is it that the demon is very powerful than the Lord, that he is able to strike the mace out of the Lord's hand. So I'm basically going from that verse, from that purport, where the Lord is actually playing, right? Even when you see with Hiranyakashipu, the Lord, it is mentioned when it's like the lion playing with the mouse, right? So that means here the Lord is basically coming here to make some fun, right? That's what his intent is, and therefore he is allowing his mace to slip from his hand when the demon strikes, making everybody believe that the Lord has lost his mace. But here you see this beautiful narration, translation. It is not talking about a kind of a horror, right? If the mace slips out of the hand, it will be looked at with, oh, what a problem now, like that. Nobody is looking at this as a problem. Here it is very nicely written that the mace, even when it is slipping, it is saying it looked splendid as it fell down whirling. That means it is just rotating and then falling off. And then it was, the mace was blazing wonderfully. It was like, I think looking like a very shiny object, like a fire emanating from that. And this looks so miraculous. This is how the devotees looks. Whatever is the activity of the Lord, it may look apparently for the human eyes something like dangerous, or it may look unpleasant or whatever. But anything connected with the Lord is always miraculous and very, very beautiful and a sight to behold. I think that is something which I thought personally in this, looking at this verse, and I thought I will share that with you all. Then the next verse talks about, even though the demon had an excellent opportunity to strike his unarmed foe without obstruction, he respected the law of single combat, thereby kindling the fury of the Supreme Lord. So here also from other commentary of Srila Prabhupada on a similar situation, where a devotee, where there's a fight between two personalities, the law of fight, particularly here it is written law of single combat. That means when two persons are fighting one on one, the law, there is always some governing principles of any activity, right? Only animals, even animals have a lot of, what do you call, rules of behavior. So I can't even say like only animals don't have it. The human should have some kind of a governing principle for everything, even if it means law. For example, in the animal kingdom, if you see, like, when there is two animals are fighting, there is a law. It's not like, they fight to finish. There is some kind of a code of conduct, like, like for example, if you look at giraffes fighting, like, they bend their neck and give a blow. And at some point in time, when a particular giraffe is hit at a particular point, then naturally, then the strength of the other one is established, and then this giraffe which is hit moves away, and the other giraffe is considered the winner. This you can see in many animal kingdom, it is there. Like, even animals, when they are fighting, when one person is not able to, then it will sit down and then bow its head, and that means I am surrendering. Then automatically the other animal establishes and understands that my supremacy is established, and then he moves away. So this we have seen in many, many animal kingdom. Very rarely that you see them that, it results in a death of the other person. Of course, unless the other one is not giving up in any form and shape. So this is there even in an animal kingdom. So why not in human thing? So the law there is that if in a one-to-one engagement of combat, if one of the warriors loses his weapon, then the other one cannot take advantage and therefore kill him. Nirayudhamani, they say. No, here also the word is used. Nirayudha. Nirayudha means having no weapon. So if you are in such a situation, the other person cannot kill. So there are many occasions when the higher opponent waits for the other person to either pick up another weapon or this weapon or whatever. If it is broken, then he has to pick up another weapon. If he does not have another weapon, then even if the superior person puts his weapon, has a weapon in hand, he will not kill with the weapon. He will put the weapon down and then he will go hand to hand, so like wrestling or whatever, or how he will. So that means you have to have a matching kind of. If you have a weapon, I have a weapon. If you don't have a weapon, I don't. I also fight without having a weapon. Some grammar, what you call, some principles are always accepted there. So here, Hiranyaksha, even though he is a demon, he is following this principle here, and thereby kindling the fury of the Supreme Lord. The Lord does not expect, in one sense, that he respects these things, but since he is respecting, it becomes like he becomes little bit more what you call has an upper hand by simply following the dharma, and that infuriates the Lord, is what has been written here. And then the next one, in translation, the last verse: as the Lord's mace fell down to the ground and a cry of alarm arose from the witnessing crowd of gods and rishis, the personality of Godhead acknowledged the demon's love of righteousness and therefore invoked his Sudarshana discus. So here, the Lord is always, we have seen elsewhere also very clearly that the Lord is neutral. So that we are able to see that quality of the Lord is coming out. Even though in the previous verse it is mentioned, it brings out the fury of the Lord. Apparently it looks like he is angry that he is following the dharma, but actually the Lord is very happy that he is following the dharma, even though he is Rakshasa, even though he is his enemy, even though he is fighting, even though in the mind of the demon it is not a favorable act against the Lord, even though his intent is to kill the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the personality of the Supreme Personality of Godhead does not think it like that, right? He is able to appreciate even the good behavior of the enemy who is supposedly trying to kill him. So this is something which we need to, if you see the greatness of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, his completely neutral position is one, and second, his appreciation of even a small thing in the most demoniac person. I think these two are very standing out by seeing this translation, and Prabhupada had commented on such nature of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in different verses. So I thought it fit to discuss just those two aspects here. The Lord's appreciation of even a small activity of righteousness, or a little bit of following the right path, the Lord appreciates, even though he is very fallen, even though he is demoniac. So there is hope for all of us, right? Whatever anarthas we have, whatever we have, but a little bit of sincerity in trying to serve the Lord, do some devotional service, chanting, whatever we do, reading, a little bit of a service to Vaishnavas, whatever we do is always immediately acknowledged and appreciated by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So these are the few things I wanted to share. I don't want to elaborate too much beyond this because there is no purport, as I mentioned earlier. Now we are only at 8:34, so we have a few more minutes to go, so maybe another 20 odd minutes to go, 20-25 minutes. So I thought it is also nice to discuss another one other subject matter today. So today happens to be Lokanath Goswami Maharaj's disappearance day. So I don't know, we have not had too much of information about him, at least whatever I've heard. So I try to check up Lokanath Goswami about his appearance and his pastimes. So we will try to discuss that a little bit, so that it's on this disappearance day of one of the pure devotees of the Supreme Lord of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, we can purify ourselves. So I'm reading from some biography of Lokanatha, Srila Lokanatha Das Goswami. So Lokanatha Goswami was an associate of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He is mentioned in Chaitanya Charitamrita as follows: Sange Gopala Bhatta Dasa Raghunatha Raghunatha Bhatta Gosai Are Lokanatha. In fact, even in other places also it is mentioned about that, but very little about Lokanatha Gosai, because the point is he had actually given this instruction that he was so humble, so down to earth, that he did not want any name and fame for himself. So he had actually told, don't write anything about me in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. So this was an instruction given by him. We will see that later. And therefore, very little has been written about him to respect his feeling or his mood. So when Rupa Goswami stayed at Mathura, he was accompanied by Gopala Bhatta Goswami, Raghunatha Das Goswami, Raghunatha Bhatta Goswami, and Lokanatha Das Goswami. In fact, Lokanatha Das Goswami was much more elder to all of the other Goswamis. So this is something which I learned today. Srila Bhakti Vedanta Swami gives the following information about Srila Lokanatha Goswami. Sri Lokanatha Goswami was a personal associate of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and a great devotee of the Lord. He was a resident of a village named Talakkadi in the district of Yashohara in Bengal. Previously, he lived in Kachnapara. His father's name was Padmanabha and his only younger brother was Pragalbha. Following the orders of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Sri Lokanatha went to Vrindavana to live. He established a temple named Gokulananda. So this is Prabhupada's commentary on Lokanatha Goswami's appearance. We will read further. Srila Narottama Dasa Thakura selected Srila Lokanatha Dasa Goswami to be his spiritual master, and he was the only disciple. Because Lokanatha Dasa Goswami did not want his name mentioned in Chaitanya Charitamrita, we do not often see it in that celebrated book. So that's the point I was mentioning earlier. And Narottama Dasa Thakura, we all hear him. He has written many wonderful songs in the Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya, and he actually became the disciple of Lokanatha Goswami, and it is mentioned he is the only disciple for Lokanatha Goswami. And we will also see how he became a disciple. That's a little bit of how he got pleased by him and he accepted him as his disciple. On the EBR Railroad, the Yashohara station is located in Bangladesh. From the railway station, one has to go by bus to the village of Sonakhali, and from there to Kejura. From there, one has to walk, or during the rainy season, go by boat to the village of Talakkadi. In this village, there are still descendants of Lokanatha Goswami. A pranam mantra for Lokanatha Das Goswami has written by Narottama Das Thakura. It reads, Srimad Radha Vinodika Seva Sampat Samanvitam Padmanabhat Majam Shrimal Lokanatha Prabhum Bhaje. I worship the lotus feet of Srila Lokanatha Prabhu, the son of Sri Padmanabha. He is a storehouse of single-minded service to the lotus feet of Sri Radha Vinoda. In the village of Talakkori Gram in the Yashohara district lived the mother and father of Srila Lokanatha Goswami. His father's name was Padmanabha and his mother's name was Sri Sita Devi. Sri Padmanabha Bhattacharya was a very dear follower of Sri Advaita Acharya. One day, Sri Lokanatha Goswami took his birth in the house of Sri Padmanabha and Sri Sita Devi. His younger brother's name was Sri Pragalbha Bhattacharya. The descendants of Pragalbha still live in Talakkori Gram. So his brother's descendants, naturally, I think Loknath Goswami was a brahmachari and therefore no descendants, but his brother's descendants are still living in that village. This happens to be in Bangladesh as per what this commentary is saying. From his early childhood, Srila Lokanatha was indifferent to family life. One day, giving up his mother and father and leaving his home behind forever, he went to Mayapur in Navadvipa to take darshan of the holy feet of Sri Gauranga. Sri Gauranga Deva embraced Lokanatha Goswami with great affection, and soon he ordered Lokanatha Goswami to quickly go to Vrindavana. But Lokanatha Goswami could understand by certain evidence that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would leave home and take sannyasa within 2 or 3 days. Therefore, he was in great anxiety. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu could understand the mind and heart of Lokanatha Goswami and consoled him, saying, "We shall be reunited in Vrindavana." In this connection, Srila Narahari Chakravarti has written in his Bhakti Ratnakara, while he was weeping and weeping, crying out of his heart at the lotus feet of Sri Chaitanya Lokanatha felt himself being caught up and embraced by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Later, as Lokanatha bid him farewell, the Lord gave him a confidential message which consoled him greatly. After this, he offered his soul at the lotus feet of Sriman Mahaprabhu, and after giving his pranams to all the devotees, he went on his way. After this, Lokanatha never returned to home life. Rather, afflicted with deep separation from Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he began wandering from one holy place of pilgrimage to the next. Gradually, after visiting many holy places, he came to Vrindavana Dham. In the meanwhile, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took sannyasa and went to Jagannatha Puri. After staying in Puri for some time, the Lord had a mind to deliver the fallen souls, and so began his tour of South India. Hearing of the Lord's tour of South India, Sri Lokanatha also went to South India in search of the Lord. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, after visiting many holy places of pilgrimage in South India and again returning to Jagannatha Puri for some time, finally came to Vrindavana. Hearing of this, Lokanatha Goswami quickly went to Vrindavana. Meanwhile, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had already left for Prayagadama. Arriving in Vrindavana, not seeing Mahaprabhu, Lokanatha was heartbroken. He resolved to set everything right by starting out the very next morning for Prayaga to meet the Lord. That night, the Lord came to him in a dream and consoled him, saying, "O Lokanatha, stay in Vrindavana. I have not broken my vow. I have already come to Vrindavana and live there in another form. In this way, you shall always maintain my connection." So here the Lord, if you remember, he mentioned earlier that we will reunite in Vrindavana. So here, when the Lord comes to Vrindavana, Lokanatha Goswami is not there. So he is feeling that, the situation. And Lord is telling him that, I have not broken that vow that I will meet you in Vrindavana. He is saying, I have already come to Vrindavana and live there in another form. So that way he is saying, my promise is fulfilled. I am there with you in Vrindavana, even though physically I am, maybe in Prayag or I may be elsewhere later. A few days later, Srila Lokanatha Goswami chanced to meet the most dear followers of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Sri Rupa, Sri Sanatana, Sri Gopala Bhatta, Sri Bhugarbha and others. The exchange of divine love between them was wonderful to behold. They were all of one mind, one heart. In the midst of the Goswamis, Sri Lokanatha was the oldest. He was fully absorbed in prema. That is the last stage of, uh, uh, reaching perfection of devotional life, prema. In his Mangalacharana to the Hari Bhakti Vilasa, Sri Sanatana Goswami offers his respect to Lokanatha Goswami as follows. Vrindavan Priyan Vande Sri Govinda Padashritan Srimad Kashivaram Lokanatham Sri Krishna Dasakam. I offer my obeisances on to Lord Sri Kashishwara Pandit, Sri Lokanatha Goswami and Sri Krishnadasa Kaviraja Goswami, who are very dear to Sri Govinda in Vrindavana, having taken shelter at his lotus feet. Srila Lokanatha Goswami wandered throughout all 12 forests of Vrindavana in great ecstasy. In one of the forests, there is a village named Umarao. There, he stayed for some time on the banks of Kishori Kunda. He had a great desire to establish the worship of the deity and render service to Krishna in that way. Understanding Lokanatha's aspiration to serve, Krishna himself appeared before him and offered Lokanatha a vigraha, saying, "Worship this deity here. This deity's name is Radha Vinoda." After giving him this beautiful deity, the Lord suddenly disappeared. At this, Lokanatha Goswami becomes stricken with anxiety. Seeing him absorbed in worry, Radha Vinoda smiled and said, "Why have you brought me here? I have come here personally just to satisfy your purpose. What do you want from me? I live in the forest here near the village of Umarao. By this Kishori Kunda you see before you, I make my residence. You must now give me something to eat quickly." Lokanatha Goswami's joy knew no bounds. He floated in the waves of prema. After this, he prepared an offering for the Lord to eat. After offering fine rice on a fresh banana leaf to the deity, he experienced great ecstasy by offering his life at the lotus feet of the Lord. He was stunned by drinking in the nectarian beauty of the Lord. After this, he offered a bed of flowers and made the Lord rest. Sri Lokanatha Goswami made this place his home. The local villagers and cowherd men wanted to construct a bhajana kutir for him, but he refused to accept it. In order to protect the deity, he prepared a cloth bag which he would keep around his neck at all times. Sri Radha Vinoda became like a jeweled necklace around the neck of Lokanatha Goswami. The cloth bag was his temple. This was Lokanatha Goswami's practice until the day he disappeared from this earth, and is an example of the strict vairagya he maintained. With great care, he always stayed in the association of the Goswami of Vrindavana. So amazing. That means he was having this deity, Radha Vinoda, with him all the time, hanging him in his neck. And this is what he is talking about, the strict vairagya that is maintained. It's okay for a few days when we all, for example, go on Nagar Sankirtan. Sometimes we may get the opportunity to carry the Lord. But that is all fine for some time. Once you are back, you feel so tired, you try to say, okay, how can I keep the deities back to where they belong? But here he was carrying the deity all his life. That is why it is mentioned as Vairagya. It is very difficult to exhaustively describe the life and pastimes of Lokanatha Goswami, who was very dear to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his dear followers, beginning with Sri Rupa and Sri Sanatana, disappeared, Srila Lokanatha Goswami could not tolerate the separation. After this, his only purpose in life was to establish the wishes of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Srila Lokanatha Goswami gave mantra diksha to Sri Narottama Dasa Thakura. There is no mention in the Shastra that he accepted any other disciples. Narottama Thakura served him in secret by going in the dead of night to the place where Lokanatha would pass stool and urine and cleansing the area very carefully. Seeing Narottama's humility, Lokanatha accepted him. So this is what is Narottama Dasa Thakura's service to Lokanatha Goswami, that he went and cleaned his, the place where he used to pass stool. So in other words, cleaning the toilet of Lokanatha Goswami. So like we say menial tasks. So he performed this menial task of cleaning the, when I say toilet, not strictly, maybe those days it was not like that, but again, to clean it so that he can use it the next day, that way. So that really pleased Lokanatha Goswami about the humility of Narottama Dasa Thakura, and therefore he has accepted him as his disciple. Srila Lokanatha Goswami, in his ripe old age, while performing his bhajan in Kadiravan in Kayara Gram, passed away and entered into the eternal unmanifest pastimes of the Lord. At that place is a kunda called Sri Yugala Kunda. On the banks of that kunda, Srila Lokanatha Goswami entered into Samadhi. Actually, I will share that picture of that Samadhi. So this is the picture of the Samadhi of Lokanatha Goswami. So Lokanatha Goswami Maharaj ki jai. It is said that when Krishnadasa Kaviraja Goswami went to Lokanatha Goswami and asked his blessings to compile the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Lokanatha Goswami gave his blessings but prohibited Kaviraja Goswami from mentioning his name in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. For fear of violating the order of Lokanatha, Kaviraja Goswami has only briefly mentioned him in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. On the day of Krishnashtami in the month of Shravana, he entered into the eternal pastime of the Lord. So today is that day. Srila Narottama Dasa Thakura Mahasaya prays as follows at the lotus feet of his Gurudeva. Haha Prabhu Lokanatha Raka Padad Vande Kripa Drishtitye Chaha Yadi Haya Anande Manovacha Siddhi Habe Hang Purna Trishna Hetaya Chaitanya Mile Seta Radha Krishna Tumi na Karile Daya Ke Kairbe Ara Manera Vasana Purna Kare Eibara Ye Tini Samsare Mura Ara Keho Nai Kripa Kari Nija Padatale Deha Tai Radha Krishna Leela Gunagav Ratri Dine Narottama Vancha Purna Nahe Tuva Vine. O Lokanatha, O Gurudeva, if you are pleased with me, please keep me in the shelter of your lotus feet and cast your merciful glance upon me. By your mercy, I can find the perfection of inner fulfillment, and by your mercy, I can someday meet Sri Chaitanya and Radha Krishna. If you are not merciful to me, then what shall I do? Please, just once, fulfill my heart's desire. In the three worlds of birth and death, no one is more in need of your mercy. Please give me your mercy and give me a place at your lotus feet. Day and night I sing the qualities and pastimes of Radha and Krishna. Still, the inner aspirations of Narottama for the service of Sri Sri Radha Govinda and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu can only be realized through your grace, O Lokanatha Goswami Prabhu. Very amazing prayer. We can see this sometimes, we may be, doing devotional service 24/7. He's saying this, day and night I'm singing the glories of Radha and Krishna and Mahaprabhu. But he's saying, I will not get their favor without your mercy. So this is the greatness of, the parampara, the greatness of the Guru parampara. Without Guru parampara, there is no way we can go back to Godhead. How much ever great is our personal devotional service. So even Prahlad Maharaj, right? When he had darshan of Narsimhadev, his first point was, okay, now he has seen the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Now what is there? Between him and the Lord, there is nothing, right? It is just him and the Lord. Why would he, how should be his mind? How is he thinking? But actually he says, on the time when he's seeing Narsimhadev, his prayer is that, oh my Lord, by the mercy of my spiritual master, Narada Muni, that I am able to see you. That is the way he is actually putting it across. So that is the point that in the Vaishnava Parampara, we clearly understand that without the mercy of the Guru, without the mercy of the Parampara, there is no way we can actually think of having any kind of association with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. How much ever we try, how much ever supposedly are our great devotional qualities, that is of no real use unless we are connected to the Lord through the parampara or the Guru Tattva. So here in our Vaishnava parampara, we have Lokanatha Goswami, who is one of the great associates of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and who by his personal examples showed how one can perform pure devotional service. So we will all pray to Lokanath Goswami, Srila Lokanath Goswami, for our spiritual advancement, for our following the order of our spiritual masters and progress in whatever little way we can. So Hare Krishna, I will end here. If there are any questions, any comments, welcome. Hare Krishna. Okay. So if there are nothing to comment, then we will end here. It is now going to be 9 o'clock, 2 minutes to 9. So we will end here. Thank you all very much for patiently listening and participating in today's temple's Srimad Bhagavatam class. Thank you all very much. We will all connect again tomorrow. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.